In today's fun-filled video, we will be doing an oil change on our Harley touring bike with the 107. Super easy, doesn't take long at all. You will be done in less than one beer. You'll see two plugs here. You're going to see one right here where my finger's pointing that faces down, and one that faces out. The one that faces out is our engine oil. The one that faces down in this transmission. So we're going to remove the engine oil drain plug, which is right there. We'll go ahead and put a small, shallow pan under here. If you have a shallow enough pan, you do not need the bike on a lift to do this. This will be a 5/8 inch socket. While that's draining, go ahead and inspect your plug. Make sure your O-ring is okay. If that's beat up, you'll need to replace that. And just clean this plug off. You may have some debris stuck to this magnet on the top, so go ahead and take a rag and clean that up. Now you could be pulling the oil filter while this is draining if you have two pans. With my setup, I just do one and then the other. So once this is done draining, we can go ahead and replace our plug. And this will get torqued to 14 to 21 foot-pounds. I use an inch-pound torque wrench here because they're a little smaller than the foot-pounds, and I just set mine to 208, which is about 19. It's right in the middle there of the 14 to 21 range. And now we're ready to go ahead and pull our oil filter. So moving on to the oil filter, on the left-hand side of the bike, you see your horn there. The oil filter is right in here on the front side of the bike. And here's the oil filter wrench I use. I'll put a link in the description below. So we'll go ahead and remove that. So we'll go ahead and position our pan under the front side of the bike here where that oil filter's at. They do make a drip piece to put in there so that most of the oil runs down a specific channel instead of all over the place. I don't have one yet myself, but I'll put a link in the description. Now, before we actually remove the oil filter, on the front side of the bike you have this plastic cover, has a couple tabs here. If you just lift up on those and pop that off, and then this will pull straight out. You see the grommets there that hold it in place. You'll get more oil into your pan instead of all over this cover and all over everything else. So with our oil filter socket on there, we're ready to go ahead and remove this. So you see in there, kind of drips all over the lower part of the case there. You just have to stick a rag in there and clean that up. There's no real super clean way to do this part. Now you'll take notice in there where the oil filter sits is shiny metal. That's what we want to see. Make sure the rubber gasket comes off with the old oil filter. You don't want to have the old gasket on there and then put the new filter on with another gasket. Now I personally like to use Wix filters. So here's the number if you're going to get this filter. And then my personal preference on oil is the Lucas Full Synthetic 2050. And I actually run this oil in all three holes, the primary, transmission, everything, in all my Harleys. So next thing you want to do is dip your finger in your old oil and just put a little coating of oil on the new gasket on your oil filter. And then go ahead and reinstall that. Make sure you always start everything by hand before you put a wrench on it to make sure your threads are lined up. That'll keep you from ever cross-threading anything. Generally, you want to go as tight as you can by hand and then a quarter turn with the wrench. So we have our drain plug back in, new oil filter installed. If you remove this front piece, go ahead and reinstall that. And now we're ready to fill the bike back up with oil. So coming over to the right side here is your oil fill. Right here, go ahead and unscrew that. Okay, using a long skinny funnel, we're ready to start filling this up. Now this should take just about 5 quarts if I remember correctly. So we're going to put in 4 and then we're going to check it. So with 4 quarts in, we're ready to check the oil level, see where we're at. So before we do, let's take a look at the dipstick. You're going to see 2 mesh areas. Top mesh area with an arrow that says add quart, and the bottom mesh area with an arrow where it says full hot. We want it right about where those 2 mesh areas overlap. That's where we're going to want it when the bike is cold. Screw that all the way in. And with 4 quarts, we are right on the money, right at the top of the add quart mesh. So that's real good. Now that level might go down a little bit when we start to bike up and oil gets into the filter. So we're going to go ahead and now start to bike up, and then we'll check the level again. We're going to let the bike run for a few seconds here so that the oil gets through the entire system. I'd say about 30 seconds of running or so ought to be good. So now we're ready to check this again. We're going to need to clean it off and then dip it. So vibration will give you a false reading. And so there we can see it went down a little bit. So we want to add just a little bit. I'd say maybe half a quart. And now that we've already run the bike once, we don't need to run it again. The oil's through the system and the oil filter is filled with oil. So now we're just doing checks right here at the dipstick and filling as needed. Okay, so that's about a half quart we put in there. We're right about at the top of the add quart mesh and about a quarter of the way up the other mesh. So that's perfect. We're right at the top of where they overlap. So there you have it, 4.5 quarts. So we'll go ahead and screw that back in and you're all done. So that's all there is to changing the oil on your Harley 107. If this video helped you out, please hit the video with a like, subscribe to the channel. Lots of Harley stuff on there now, always lots more coming. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching.